gentlemen, he is the OG of KRSchannel. He's one of the first one that I invited, and I begged him to come over and to make my channel look important and good. And so he's back, the original gangster of KRSchannel. He's back in the hood, Vaughn Paul Manley.
Thank you, Kapil. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Man, you're the OG. You're the original gangster of this.
Well, I don't know. I feel totally lucky. I remember when
Straight
I got
out of Honolulu.
Right. I remember I was sitting in New Delhi with, studying at KRSchannel school when I got your email.
That's right.
I was like, wow, this is interesting. When I go back, we'll get to do something with Kapil and check that out. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So what do you got in your bag of tricks today for us?
Well, we've talked about relationships, we've talked about childbirth, and with relationships, childbirth, that's all around the area of the honey, what about the money? So, I thought it'd be fun to talk about career and ups and downs in career.
Yeah, nice.
And so, it's, if you're not talking about relationships in a reading, then you're talking about career. And so it's good to see extreme examples.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we begin, though, I want to just give a little perspective on a few things. K.N. Rao, my teacher, is constantly saying astrology is a super science. This encompasses every area of life, and this encompasses every event in a lifetime, which is so vast. It's so vast in scope. It's so vast in its methodologies. In whatever methods you find working, your teacher is providing you. If you can explain events logically, then, it's working.
Yeah.
It's a great, that's the point, is being able to explain events in a systematic, logical way. But then what you find out is that at some point, logic and reason and intellect is not enough. It's just too much data. If you are looking at, the chart from a Parashri perspective, you're looking at it from Jaimini, perhaps you're integrating Brigu methods. You're collecting so much data.
And it's just, it can make you go crazy. Okay, what do I do now? What do I look at?
So we're always analyzing data. We're collecting data. We're detectives looking at the chart for juicy data that's going to help us formulate hypotheses and a conclusion. And sometimes we have to look at a lot of things, a lot of angles, and at some point it's going to become analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
It's just going to be too much, and you're trying to say something and you can't synthesize. So this is analysis and synthesis. The analysis part, which is more left brain, that can be taught. Right? That's objective.
Yeah.
That's the science aspect. But astrology as a super science is not just a science, it is also an art.
Yeah.
And that's the skill. The real skill is to combine analysis and synthesis, the science and the art. And
intuition.
You're right. So the art is the intuition.
Right.
That's feeling. You get a sense of things. You work hard by analyzing. You have to learn the fundamentals. You have to go through that rigorous training, or you might say, academic approach to astrology. But at some point, you have to let that go and let God. And that's the feeling side, the intuition, which brings it all together. And K.N. Rao talks about this musicologist that's got this teacher, Bhaktananda, has a 5-year school, and he says, we can teach you method. We can teach you what's called Nayaki, but we can't teach you skill. skill you have to learn yourself by applying, by developing experience. And that's Gayaki. That's skill. That's the synthesis part. I mean, a teacher can help you because you can benefit by their consciousness, by hearing their logical reasoning, and you can get a sense of how they came to those conclusions. So, but you know, you get to the 10,000 mark of 10,000 hour mark, and you know, they say that you get to 10,000 hour mark in any field, and you become an expert. I don't know if that's exactly true. I mean, of course, it's not like, I don't think it's like the 100 monthly principle. You hit the 10,000th hour and all of a sudden you're an expert, you know, but you get a sense over time, you know, you by experience and by spiritual practice, by quieting the mind and putting aside the confusion that's very likely to set in. You step back and feel. So that's the heart of astrology, really. You know, logic will only take you so far. Like Vivekananda said, the intellect is a great servant, but a lousy master. And now in the computer age, the information age, it's easy to get the knowledge. Yeah. But to get the skill, to be able to apply it, that's work. That's also, it's work on one hand because it means we have to be dedicated, we have to develop the experience, but it also means we need to integrate the heart, the feeling, the intuition, because it will never work. You'll never be able to synthesize all that data. So to get a felt sense. And I remember one time I was in 2000, I spent a month in Delhi at KRSchannel school, and every day I'd go to his house, I'd go to the school on the weekends when it was happening. And one time I was sitting there, and this American woman came in for a reading, and gave KRSchannel the chart of her mother, and all she said was, "She's going through a hard time. Is there something you can say that can help the situation?" And I remember looking at him, looking at his screen. I was going, well, okay, so this is the master collecting data. The chart he's never seen, and you know, quickly he is processing all kinds of data. I could see on the screen he's looking at the Parashri perspective, so he's checking out the Parashri yogas, and then he's also got Jaimini there, so he's combining Parashri and Jaimini, and he's also looking at other divisional charts, all of the divisional charts, and he did this all very fast. You know, it's like you're going through the checkout line at a market, and the person scanning each item, and it's like he was collecting the data. It was like, you know, every blink of his eye was like collecting more data. It was all being processed so quick. And then at some point, without saying anything, he just got up and went to the restroom. And before he opened the door, he looked back, he goes, "You know, there's something called chronic fatigue, right? You guys call it there in the United States, it's called chronic fatigue. Or Epstein-Barr, and the woman was just, her jaw dropped. And then he went to the bathroom, and she looked at me and goes, I can't believe he said that. That's just what we were thinking was her problem, that she had chronic fatigue. And in a matter of 5 minutes, he diagnosed the whole thing.
Oh my God, I love these stories. I love them.
But it was so fast, and you know, he got up and walked away. It was almost like he did all the hard work, the data, you know, processing, and you could see his mind totally concentrated, totally focused. And then he got up and he just went into the feeling. He closed his eyes, was just feeling it. And then he came out with that. It became clear in a flash, an intuition. So that's really what we have to do, is that at some point we have to We have to integrate. In that synthesis process, we've got to let go and let God. You know, if we have a sincere prayer to be of help, of service, then we're going to get intuitions.
Yeah.
You know, that is going to get enlivened by our you know, dedication. Any case, so that's just a little story, because it's easy to think is that, okay, it's enough to get the knowledge. That's all I need to do is get the knowledge. You know, just get the magic, get the secret sauce, find the secret technique that's going to put it all together, right? You know, but putting it all together is different. It's the right brain. It's not the left brain.
That's the
also B.V. Raman also in his books talks about that. You can't just use your intellect. So, you know, there's a great quote by Gandhi. He says, when you make yourself zero, when you make yourself into zero, your power becomes invincible. So you go from, you know, astrologers kind of like heroes. I mean, we get this secret knowledge. I mean, now it's not so secret. It's available on the internet. You know, thanks to you, Kapil.
I'm the Robin Hood. I'm stealing from all of you.
Well, you know, it's benefiting a lot of people, so it's a good thing. So, but I mean, now it's all available, and so we're becoming like magicians. You know, if you can see into the future, I mean, it's like we're going for. You get the knowledge, and you can see these events happening. You become like a hero, but at some point in the process, you become a zero.
Yeah.
You know, and you let it all go, and you let God speak through you. You know, that's the ultimate, because, and that's the most satisfying. I remember when I was a teenager, I played tennis, and I was so dedicated to it. I worked super hard at it. Lived down the street from 9 tennis courts, lighted at night. I would just play it all the time. And I remember there was some times that the ball became huge. Somehow, everything slowed down. The ball became huge, and I could do no wrong. You know, I could do anything on the court. I could put any spin. I could beat anybody. It felt like, at least, and it was a high. It was like getting a runner's high, where you just get into a peak performance experience.
Yeah.
And you know, there's been, and then I was like, how can I get that experience more? And I remember I was playing in this tournament, this national tournament, and I went to the bookstore to get a gift for my sister, and she had learned Transcendental meditation, and so I found a book on Transcendental meditation to give to her. Well, it ended up that she had already done it and been there, done that. So she was interested in the book, and that was what I read when I got mononucleosis right at the beginning of my Rahu Dasha, after I'd done the 7 years of Mars Dasha from age 9 to 16. I hit Rahu Dasha. Right when it hit, I was in bed for like 3 months. So I picked up that book, and oh my God, this is maybe this is going to help me get that peak experience. So I got initiated into meditation. And it was like, okay, I'm going to use this to improve my tennis. And then I started liking the meditation so much that I just dropped the tennis.
Oh my God.
But that was my Rahu Dasha.
Yeah.
That was Rahu is in my 12th house from the moon, 8 from the ascendant, and in the nakshatra of Ketu. So it was a very mystical Dasha.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
that's what happens.
It took me into altered states through meditation. Then it gets, you know.
And then when you said that K.N. Rao said that women had fatigue, what did he, according to you, what did you see that he said regarding the fatigue? What were the combination that he was looking at?
Saturn aspect in the sun.
Saturn, okay, because sun is the energy. So
right. Yeah. Sun is prana, life force.
Yeah.
And Saturn constricts the life force.
Exactly.
Saturn kind of constriction, and they're also enemies. And we're going to see in some charts how when Saturn is aspecting the sun, one's reputation goes down, fame goes down. You know, it's when the fall could happen. not always. Or not only Saturn, but also say transits of Rahu Ketu over the sun can also give these kinds of experiences, eclipses happening on those points. But yeah, so I mean, when you're practicing astrology, you can get that kind of a high experience where you're feeling connected to like the music of the spheres, when you're using your intellect and the heart and the intuition all comes together. Anyways, that's been like the highlight of my life practically. When that all happens, it's like it's a great thing. So now I'm not doing it for tennis. Now I'm doing it for astrology.
Yeah.
But anyway, so let's talk about career ups and downs. You know, career ups and downs. So achievements, great achievements, should have great combinations in the chart. I mean, it just makes logical sense. If somebody's achieved something extraordinary, then there should be extraordinary yogas in the chart activating that, and the dashas should be activating. I mean, the dashas should be activating that yoga. So let's look at the chart of Tiger Woods. Okay, let's see. I don't think the screen is shared yet. Okay. All right. So, you got that?
Nope.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this is a chart of Tiger Woods.
No. I don't see it.
You don't see it. Okay.
No.
All right. Hold on. All right. Okay.
Okay. Now we see it.
All right. Okay. So December 30th, 1975 in Long Beach, California. And Astro Databank says that he was born at 22:50, so 10:50 p.m.
Okay.
And K.N. Rao looked, when I was in India a couple years ago, I remember someone said to me, who was a student there, he goes, you know, he talked about Tiger Woods' chart. He said he has Leo ascendant, not Virgo. And I was like, I had used Virgo for a while.
Yeah, I mean, like, everybody else that I know uses Virgo.
Okay. And I thought that for a long time, but then I started looking at it, and it's making much more sense to use Leo. In any case.
Okay. Well, he is a tiger.
Yeah, he's a tiger, right? The lion.
That's the first indication he's a Leo.
Right, there you go. Right, for sure. He's a royal sign, and so he accomplished something that no one had ever done. First of all, he was the youngest player to win a Masters. You know, that is that's the most prestigious event. There are 4 of them a year in golf, and he had turned 20. So that was, I believe, 1996. So 1996, he turned 20, or 19. But in any case, he turned 20 at the end of 1990. In any case, it's around age 20. So he became a pro. He had done really well in the amateurs, and they were already saying this guy is going to be amazing. And his first year on the tour, he won a Masters. And he didn't only win it, he won it by an amazing margin, 12 strokes, which had never been done before. 12 strokes above the second place person. I mean, he was for sure, he was an assured winner, you know, way before the 18th hole. Any case, this was unheard of. Not only was he the youngest, but then he won by the largest margin of anybody.
Yeah.
So this was extraordinary, and it catapulted into stardom and into the #1 ranking. By the end of his first year, he was ranked #1 in the world. I mean, it was just so no one has been able to do that, and probably won't ever again at age 20. That's well, we'll see. But in any case, so this happened in his Venus, Jupiter, Rahu Dasha. So just take a look at Venus. in the chart. Venus is the 10th lord from Leo ascendant. It's the 10th lord, and it's in mutual aspect with Mars. It's not only mutual aspect, though, it is a part of Artana Yoga.
Yeah.
So this becomes extraordinary from the standpoint of Raja Yogas. This is the 9-10 Raja Yoga. It's not only a mutual aspect, but it's a part of Artana Yoga. It's an exchange. You can't get two planets in more intense connection. Practically, I mean, you could, yes, if they were in tighter mutual aspect to one another. Mars is at 24 degrees, Venus is at 5, so that's 19 degrees apart. So yeah, it could be more intense, but this, you can't have a more sambandha or connection to be a mutual aspect and an exchange.
Plus,
so
Mars and Venus rule Kendra and Trikona, so Mars is a yoga kark on top of that.
Yes, yes.
So obviously very strong Raja Yoga.
Yes, yes, exactly. Right. And if you, and then Venus gets the additional aspect of Jupiter. So not only is it aspected by the 9th Lord Mars, but the 5th Lord Jupiter.
Yeah.
And notice how it repeats from the moon and from Venus. Jupiter is again the 5th Lord. Venus is again an angular house lord, the 7th Lord. And Mars then is also a trinal house lord. It's the 1st Lord. From the moon and from Venus, the Dasha Lagna.
Yeah.
So it's not only strong when you are reading the chart from the standpoint of the ascendant, it's strong when you're reading the chart from the standpoint of the moon, Chandra Lagna, as well as Dasha Lagna. So any good yoga that is getting, any Raja Yoga, Dana Yoga, that is getting an additional aspect of Jupiter, especially a strong Jupiter, strongly positioned Jupiter by sign placement, is going to be extraordinary. It's going to be enhanced. Jupiter is the great enhancer, expander. So it's going to take it to the next level, you might say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you look at the chart from Leo, then you go, this yoga becomes more extraordinary than from Virgo. This is only one event. I've looked at all events: is marriage, childbirth from the Vimshotri Dasha standpoint, Chara Dasha, looking at Karakas. It's very assuredly Leo ascendant.
And you said, what was the timing that was occurring when you won this?
April 13th.
No, but so what was the timing, like the Dasha timing?
The Dasha timing is Venus, Jupiter, Rahu, Sun.
So Venus, Jupiter, and Rahu. So how does Venus, Jupiter, Rahu show us that success in that period?
Well, Jupiter is aspecting Venus, so there's a connection between the Mahadasha Lord and the Antardasha Lord.
Okay.
If you look also in the D10 chart, the Dashamsha chart, then you'll see that Jupiter and Venus both aspect the 10th house. Okay. They don't aspect one another, but they're both aspecting the 10th house. Yeah. And Saturn is also aspecting the 10th house. So you have the 9th Lord, 1st Lord and 9th Lord, Venus and Saturn, aspecting to its own sign, the 10th house. It's quite special. But again, there's a connection between Venus and Jupiter with regards to career and the career house. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's quite special. And Rahu can always take things to the next level, exaggerate to the next level. Is a significator, you could say, if it's well positioned, to give material gains, material success, outward, materialistic benefits. So Rahu is in the sign of Venus, so and unaspected by any planet. So the important thing to remember when we look at the nodes of the moon is to see if there are any planets aspecting it, and if not, then which planets are ruling it, what planet is ruling it, and because we can't look to Rahu or Ketu anyhow, you can't look to them as ruling any houses. So because Rahu's in the sign of Libra, so it's disposited by Venus, that reinforces Venus in the Rahu subdasha, the long Rahu subdasha. Any case. Okay, so this is quite special, but also notice that what is happening on his 10th house by transit. So this box right here is the transit. So I should put in the date. The transit's on that date, April 13th, 1997. Jupiter and Saturn are aspecting to the sign of Taurus. So the double transit effect is taking place on the 10th house.
Okay, that's right, the double transit.
Right, so Jupiter and Saturn, when they're both aspecting a sign, we did a class on this. You know, so Jupiter is also the sub-dasha lord. Quite extraordinary to have Jupiter aspecting the 10th house, especially if Saturn's also aspecting.
I think I wanted to ask you that in the previous class too. If Jupiter and Saturn are transiting, let's say they're pointing to the 10,000 dasamsha, but not in the birth chart, will that
the transits reading the transits in divisional charts?
Yeah. So if the transit is happening in the dasamsha but not in the birth chart, would you consider that as something of a significant event to happen for career or no?
You know, I once asked K and Rao about that. Do you look at transits in divisional charts? And he said it's erratic. It's not reliable. So I've pretty much dismissed that. But you know, some people swear by it. So I think it must be some validity to it. I just kind of dropped looking at that. But it is interesting, though. I mean, it would make some sense that those signs are being activated. Yeah. So, but I typically don't do that. Okay. So this was his Venus dasha. We would expect great things in his Venus dasha based on the fact, well, for all the data that we've just shared. He was #1 essentially from 1997 until 2010. I mean, there were periods in there where he dropped out of #1, but for the most part, 13 years of #1 in the world, big name in golf, you know, big money, big fame, you know, prestige, endorsements, all that came to him in his Venus dasha, followed by his Sun dasha. So Sun is less involved in a Raja Yoga. It is still getting the aspect of Mars in the natal chart. It's the first lord aspected by 4th and 9th lord. It's forming Raja Yogas, a one-sided aspect from Mars. Sun is not aspecting Mars. Mars does aspect the Sun. So we can expect good things. It should give some extension of the results of the Venus dasha, which it did. But look at the dashamsha.
Sun is in the ascendant of the dasamsha.
So sun is in the ascendant in the dashamsha.
With the 9th and 10th lord creating a Raj Yoga.
Right, 4th lord with the 9th lord. Sun is also in exchange with Venus, something we didn't mention looking at Venus. So Venus and Sun sign, Sun and Venus' sign. That's only something that will happen in a divisional chart typically. But in this case, Venus is always closer to the Sun than that. But Sun and Saturn are not comfortable with one another. It's giving a Raj Yoga, yet it's uncomfortable.
Is there any event during that his Mahadasha that signifies this uncomfortableness of Sun and Saturn?
Well, yes. I mean, the scandal that happened, that car accident.
Didn't that happen in moon period though? in 2011 or something?
No, it came to light. The scandal came out November 27th, 2009.
Okay, okay.
So that was the sun dasha, the last subdasha of the sun.
Okay.
So oftentimes when Saturn's influencing a combination, things happen later.
Okay, because it's a slow-moving planet.
Yes. Yeah, so by transit, by combination. So the very tail end of the sun dasha, Saturn, this combination was problematic for him, obviously. Okay. But look at also what was happening at that time. He was in Saturn, Venus. So Venus is in Mars' sign and aspected by Mars. I mean, this is part of the challenge for him is he's got a strong sex drive. I mean, excessively strong sex drive, passion by that Mars-Venus contact. And that continues in the Navamsha. So Mars is with Venus, conjunct with Venus in the Navamsha chart.
Okay.
So that's interesting to note because obviously he was having affairs even when he was engaged.
Yeah.
And then after he got married, I mean, it was something he was certainly addicted to. It was out of control.
Plus Rahu in the 7th house in Namansha.
Yeah, it makes more sense that Rahu is exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another factor. But he was also married in Sun. Let's see, Sun,
Venus.
Sun, Venus. Oh yeah, so that was interesting too. In the Gemini system, he was married in Capricorn, Taurus, and the Dara Karaka is Mercury in Taurus, in Capricorn, but the aspecting. So Mercury aspecting to Taurus and Capricorn, the Mahadasha and the Antardasha, running at the.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
And does KRSchannel looks at the double transit of Jupiter and Saturn for marriage as well, or just children and career?
Hold on a second.
Because I found that to be quite useful, even for marriage.
I'm sorry, I made a mistake here.
Oh.
Taurus Pisces was the period. So Taurus Mahadasha has the aspect of Mercury in the natal chart and in the Navamsha. That was the point.
Okay.
Yeah. And Taurus also has Venus in the 7th house in the natal chart. So so one more time with your question.
I was talking about, do you also look at the double transit of Jupiter and Saturn regarding marriage timing as well?
Sure, certainly. The double transit of Jupiter and Saturn.
Jupiter and Saturn, like on the 7th house or 1st house or Venus.
Absolutely. Okay. Double transit on the 7th house, 7th lord, or Venus.
Or the 1st house even, because it's the Bhavat Bhavam.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because I do that, and I found that to be very, very useful in terms of like seeing someone's timing in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Capricorn Taurus was the dasha. Capricorn Taurus.
Okay.
I was looking at this Shula dasha. In any case, okay. So the point is that there was an eclipse on his sun during Rahu was in the tail end of Sagittarius.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And Rahu had been eclipsing his sun throughout that.
Oh yeah, throughout that 18-month period, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, any case, I mean, Rahu just, yeah. Okay, so we're looking at a transit of Rahu and Ketu on the sun during that time. And we're also seeing that Saturn was in Virgo, aspecting Venus.
Okay.
So Venus was the subdasha lord, Saturn was aspecting to Venus and the moon. So that's a tough transit.
Yeah. Even right now is probably tough for him because it's going over Venus and moon.
Yeah, well, he just he can't play right now.
Yeah.
People are speculating he's going to retire in this dasha.
I feel he's going to come back in his Mars Mahadasha, 2020.
Yeah. Anyways, Sun dasha, Sun Venus, Sun with Saturn in the Dashamsha chart. Sun at that time getting afflicted by Rahu and Ketu.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and continued. So Rahu started at 28 degrees. It just had moved into Sagittarius. So it was approaching the sun even more. So after the scandal came out, the tightness of the eclipses happened, as over the next year. So that's when he fell out of, the next year is when in 2010 is when he fell out of number 1. So eclipse happening on the sun, and so sun is the karaka, main karaka of career, the 10th house. It's also his ascendant lord, and represents fame, recognition, reputation. So that was tough. Rahu transiting over the sun during the sun. The last phase of the Sun Mahadasha. Okay. So, I mean, he's kind of pulled himself back in the Moon Dasha, but Moon's debilitated. So, and the 12th Lord. So it's not as strong as Venus, even though it's associated with Venus.
I mean, he's getting a Neech Bhang Raj Yoga. Isn't that supposed to be helping him?
Yeah, certainly. It does. Certainly is. We're talking about scale. Yeah, it's among Chandra Mangala Yoga, Mars aspecting the moon, and that aspect certainly helps the moon. But it's the 12th Lord, so moon is not going to provide the same degree. Yeah. It's not going to provide the same oomph of the Venus Dasha.
Okay.
It is the 9th Lord from the moon itself, so that's helpful for sure. So. Okay, so let's look at Britney Spears. So another example of someone who rose quickly. She, at age 11, I mean, she was in a Rahu Dasha from early in her life.
Yeah.
So from 1992, she was only 10 years old.
Yeah, she was in that Mickey Mouse Club back then.
Yeah, that's right. Mickey Mouse Club, she joined that. That was her big break. And she said that she was so obsessed with becoming famous in the Rahu Dasha. She was always thinking about career. How can she, she's in her own world, trying to get her career going. Look at Rahu is in the 10th house, aspected by 5th Lord. So Saturn becomes the 5th Lord for Virgo ascendant, and then so double transit was on her 10th house at the time of her birth. Jupiter from Libra is aspecting to Rahu. Yeah. So that's the 7th Lord, 4th Lord, 7th Lord, Saturn, 5th Lord. Yeah. And if you look closely, you'll see that Rahu is in the nakshatra of Punarvasu. Jupiter is in the nakshatra of Swati. So there's a Parivartan exchange between Rahu and Jupiter, a sukshma, a nakshatra Parivartan exchange. A nakshatra Parivartana yoga. Jupiter, in this case, is really important for career. I mean, it will expand career. It's also the 7th Lord. And there's not enough talked about or credibility, you might say, to the 7th Lord with regards to career. I mean, is the 7th house is the 10th house from the 10th house.
Exactly. It's the higher self of the career, actually.
Right, right. And it brings other people, the involvement of other people in the expansion of career.
Yeah.
So the promotion of other people, relationships, people who she knows are going to, her mother was instrumental in getting her, you know, auditions, etc. They moved, I believe, to New York at an early age. But I mean, so that's the 4th Lord. Jupiter's the 4th Lord and the 7th Lord. So it brings in, you know, support of mother, support of other people, business contacts, yeah, who expanded her career. And she got that big break in 1992 at age 10 under the Rahu Jupiter Dasha.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Rahu. This is early on in the Rahu Dasha. This was just, you know, 8 months, 7.5 months after starting the Rahu Dasha. Boom, it activates that Raja Yoga in the 10th house. So here, I don't know if you know this, but Prashra talks about Rahu and Ketu giving Raja Yoga when they're in an angular house aspected by a trinal lord.
Okay.
Or in a trinal house aspected by an angular house lord. So that's what Rahu's got a Raja Yoga with forming a Raja Yoga with the aspect of Saturn.
That's right. Yeah.
And then her next break, you know, about 4.5 years later, at a pretty young age too, like age, what is that, 16? Age 16, she signed a record deal with Jive Records. So that took place also in the subdasha of Saturn. And that was her really big financial break, you might say. I mean, Rahu Dasha, I mean, obviously just to be making money in a Rahu Dasha is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, for her, she was only 10 years old and she's making money.
Oh, absolutely.
So, so you can see this career rise, sudden career rise. I believe that she was born, I mean, her birth time is 1:30. I believe that she was born at least a minute earlier. Check out what happens in the D10 chart if you change her birth time to 1:29. Okay. So the Dashamcha changes from Leo, the ascendant changes from the sign of Leo to the sign of Cancer.
Okay.
So using divisional charts for birth time rectifications, really a great tool. So that changes the Dashamsha, and Rahu then would be in the 9th house. I mean, it's not far-fetched at all. I mean, you can see here the timing of the Cancer ascendant extends from 1:15 and 46 seconds to 1:29 and 38 seconds. So that's no stretch of the imagination to be that she could be born 20 seconds earlier. I mean, yeah, or
absolutely.
earlier than that.
She has to.
Yeah. I mean,
especially knowing she's an American, they don't really concentrate on the time of birth as accurately.
Right.
So it's always the time before.
Yeah. So then, then Saturn becomes the 7th Lord, aspecting to Rahu in the 9th house. Rahu being associated with being in the 9th house with the moon, the first and the first lord, which is a trinal lord and an angular house lord, and aspected by an angular house lord. That's again a Raja Yoga in the the D10 chart, involving Rahu and Saturn.
Yep.
So that's so much more likely that she was born with Cancer ascendant as the ascendant in the D10 chart. That's the Mahadasha of Rahu in the 9th house with the ascendant lord. That's an aspected by 7th lord and disposited by Jupiter, strongly positioned in its Mulatrikona sign, Sagittarius. any case, so we can see rise of career early in life. Rahu in the 10th house, a strong desire for that. Also, when you read the chart from Rahu itself in the natal chart, then Rahu is aspected by 10th Lord Jupiter and aspected by 9th Lord Saturn.
Right.
So it repeats. And then we got a Raj Yoga also from that position. And Rahu is also disposited by Mercury. And Mercury is with the Sun. Sun and Mars in her chart does this Parivartana Yoga also. So what did she do? She was a performer. She also was a recording. She also recorded. So third house relates to these. Performing arts is third house. Also getting things into the media, that's third house. Communication industry, music industry, third house related. Okay.
And one question was, how is it that her Amatyakarka Saturn signifies her career as a singer from Gemini perspective?
Well, Saturn is the 5th Lord.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that certainly gives her, would represent, as the Amatyakarka, can give wealth, give career development, expansion. So that's wealth through creative pursuits.
Okay. And she has support of Venus Moon in the 5th house in the sign of Saturn.
Yes. So. Exactly. 11th Lord, 2nd and 9th Lord. That's a very powerful Dana Yoga in the 5th house. 11th Lord, 9th Lord, 2nd Lord. 3 wealth-giving house lords combining. Okay. And also, when you read the chart from the moon, then you see that Saturn becomes 1st Lord in the 9th house, 2nd Lord in the 9th house. So Saturn's quite beneficial for her. I mean, I think she works hard. Look how in the D10 chart, Saturn is in its own sign of Capricorn.
Yeah.
So okay. So then so look what happens. So when she got married, Jupiter was transiting her ascendant, the 7th Lord transiting the ascendant. She got married in Rahu Venus. A lot of things came together for her in the personal front in the Venus subdasha, but childbirth is interesting because that took place when Rahu was in the 7th house, Ketu in the 1st house.
Okay.
So that's interesting because both children were born while Ketu was transiting through ascendant, transiting over Saturn. And that's, as soon as she had kids, things started to get rocky in her marriage, and rocky with her children. And she was separated, and then she started doing bizarre things.
Yeah,
so, that's right. So that was Rahu, Venus, Ketu dasha when they separated, and Rahu and Ketu were transiting through this 1st and 7th through this 1st 7th house axis. So, Rahu Ketu's transit on the 1st 7th house axis can be tough for marriage. It can also be tough for one's personal life, one's reputation. Big changes can happen. And Ketu is bizarre, and she was doing bizarre things. I mean, not showing up for her kids, and then the judge revoked her rights to parent at one point while she was going through rehab. So pretty serious problems going on. It really hurt her reputation. I mean, now she's in the Jupiter dasha, and she's been able to revive. I think she should be okay in the Jupiter dasha.
No, she's got a huge contract in Vegas for like 200 million or something. She performs in Vegas now. So yeah, she's trust me, she's doing well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you know, Jupiter Dasha followed by Rahu. I mean, it's going to extend a lot of what we saw in the Rahu Dasha.
Yeah.
Jupiter's you know, yeah, it's certainly good for wealth. It's in the second house in the natal chart, but it's also involved in a Dana Yoga in the D10 chart. So it's quite strong in the D10 chart as in the sign of Sagittarius as well as in the Navamsha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. So the other thing is that this took place in the Sagittarius Dasha in the Jaimini system. And Sagittarius is known for being a sign of big swings, ups and downs in Jaimini.
Okay.
So Sagittarius is strong for when you put your finger on Sagittarius, the AMK, the Matyakaraka. Saturn is in the 10th house, second lord in the 10th house. Venus and Moon in the second house also from that position. I mean, Venus and Moon combining is a great wealth giver. It's also a special Jaimini Raj Yoga. Venus and Moon.
Yeah.
So that's powerful in the second house from a Sagittarius. Okay, and okay, let's see. Okay. And this is also the Karakamsha ascendant. Sagittarius is the Karakamsha. If you look at her Atma Karaka is Mars. Mars is placed in Sagittarius in the Navamsha. Right. That makes this is not only Sagittarius ascendant. This is the ascendant where the Karakamsha is. So that's also powerful because because Saturn's in the AMK is in the 10th house. So again, combining, we can blend these two dashas and start to see things happening from the Jaimini perspective too. I mean, she got married in Venus. We know Venus is the Karaka of marriage, the 7th house, but it's also in her chart. It's the DK. It's a planet of the lowest degrees. So just simply the fact that she got married in Venus Dasha. Venus is not only the 2nd and 9th lord, it's also the DK. So,
but are you referring to DK in terms of Vimshottari Dasha or Chara Dasha?
Both. In this
case,
case,
you can look at Dhara Karaka in Vimshottari as well.
You can look at all Karakas in Vimshottari.
Because what I heard from other people was that you don't mix up the two, like the Karakas and the Vimshottari Dashas and.
Well, you'll find that the Karaka is just looking at the Karaka status of a Dasha Lord is a helpful additional clue as to what's to happen in that Dasha.
Okay. So that's good to know.
I remember in the early 90s, there was an article that came out, or the mid to late 90s. I'd heard about that principle, and then my sister went into her Mars Dasha. Mars is her Dhara Karaka.
Okay.
And she got married right soon after she hit the Mars Dasha. So I've seen it in many, many charts, but that was the personal anecdote. Generally, you're right, especially not blending aspects.
Yeah.
Don't blend aspects. Keep the aspects separate because they're so radically different.
Right.
So, but you can look at house lordships from the Jaimini angle.
Okay.
Okay. So. Okay. So that's pretty good with Britney Spears, I think. Let's look at Frank Sinatra. Now this guy was unbelievably successful throughout his whole career. I mean, he sold over 150 million albums in his lifetime. I mean, one of the greatest recording artists of all time. He he had, you know, such a long, illustrious career, but he had one period, one small blip, you know, for a few years that he was afraid his whole career was going to decline. And that was basically his Saturn Sun Dasha. So what we have to remember is that just the Dasha sequence can give a clue. The Dasha of planets that are unfriendly, the Dasha sequence of planets that are unfriendly to one another.
Right.
Saturn Sun is going to be a bit uncomfortable, just like as we looked in the chart of Tiger Woods, his D10 chart, Saturn Sun being combined. So Saturn Sun Dasha can be difficult, just like a Saturn Sun period can be difficult. So at the Dasha Pravesh, so I'm now throwing out another technique, looking at the beginning of his Saturn Sun Dasha, Saturn was in Virgo. So there it's giving its third house aspect onto his natal sun.
Yeah.
At 26 degrees. And Saturn was going retrograde at that point. So you know it's going to be, if it's going retrograde, it's slowly on that point. Yeah. It's transiting slowly. It's gonna go back. It's like stationary direct, moving back, and then it's going to move forward. So it hovered at late degrees of Virgo, and this represented a period of decline for him.
Okay.
Also, he signed at a pretty, you know, early age. Late 20s, he signed with Columbia Records, and that contract just ended. I mean, he put out something, he put out an album and it didn't do well in 1951, 1952, and they dropped him at the end of 1952. He thought his career was over, more or less. When the contract ended with Columbia and he was losing, it had been on decline for several years, since about 1950 at least. His popularity, you know, waned. I mean, but this is popularity in relation to what it used to be. You know? So it's still, for most people, they go, I mean, he's making a lot of money, he's getting a lot produced, but it wasn't the level of popularity. His songs weren't at the top, you know, like they used to be. But they were close to the top. I mean, they're still, but, you know, just relatively speaking, it was a decline. And so you can see that when he lost Columbia, the Columbia Records, notice how Saturn was aspecting the sun. So he was in Saturn Sun. He was in Saturn Sun Dasha. And Saturn was aspecting the sun at 23 degrees. His sun is at 26 degrees. So not only is this a Saturn Sun Dasha, it's uncomfortable by nature, Saturn Sun, just like Saturn Mars Dasha can be difficult for people, or Mars Saturn, or any two planets, any Mahadasha, Antardasha of planets that are naturally uncomfortable or unfriendly with one another can be more tense, more difficult. And plus
they don't want temporary friends either.
Yes. Right. His sun is the sign of a great enemy. Any case. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, but their relationship, the sun.
You know how like planets 3 houses away on the left and right can actually become neutral then instead of being very bitter enemies.
Yes, that's right.
But then Saturn is like 8th from the sun in itself from the birth chart, so causes that ergula.
Right. Right, and also this was the Saturn Mahadasha. So reading the chart from Saturn, Sun is in the 6th house, aspected by 6th Lord. So that's another clue that the Sun's subdasha is going to be difficult. The relationship in the natal chart of the Antardasha planet being in a Dushtana house from the Mahadasha planet in any divisional chart can be problematic. It's so here's the thing. He also had an eclipse happening on his 4th and 10th house axis. So K2 was transiting through his 10th house. This was like a real low point when he was more depressed. He a band member died, or some key person died at the beginning of 1950, and it was just a rough period for him. In any case, look in the D10 chart. Saturn aspects the Sun again.
Yeah.
Sun is the 10th Lord in the D10 chart, and aspected by 2 malefics, Saturn and Mars.
Yeah.
So that's also something to watch. You go into a subdasha, into any dasha, any whatever level it is, of a planet that's aspected by 2 malefics in the D10 chart, that can represent, that subdasha or mahadasha can represent a decline, or at least a challenge.
Yeah.
For him, it was a challenge. It was a time for restructuring. He lost with his position with Columbia, his contract with Columbia, but then he signed with Capitol. I mean, this Capitol Records within 6 months. So, I mean, this is just a kind of a minute look at an illustrious career. I mean, if you look at Saturn in his natal chart, Saturn is the 4th and 5th Lord.
Yeah.
So this is a great dasha. We're just seeing a blip on the radar screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a small blip and not very well reinforced because it's aspected by Jupiter in the natal chart. It's aspected by Venus. So 2 benefics are aspecting to Saturn. So this is, benefics are going to prop it up. A dasha, it's already forming a Raj Yoga by virtue of being the 4th and 5th Lord. It's placed in the 9th house. Without those aspects, it's already forming a Raj Yoga in the 9th house. It's going to give benefit. With the aspect of the 1st Lord, Saturn, Venus, I mean, to Saturn, that's a even more well reinforced Raj Yoga. So Saturn is well placed, and if you read the chart from Saturn, its aspect of Jupiter, and Venus is an aspect of the 10th Lord, 7th Lord Jupiter, Venus the 5th Lord. So when you see this kind of thing, people can freak out. You know, they're going into a difficult, small subdasha, things are falling apart, but you can see it's well reinforced.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happened was that he got another break. He got a break. He got a movie contract. This was his big chance to revive his career, at least in his mind. He got to play a role in From Here to Eternity, which he got an Oscar award for. So this is a classic kind of downfall with a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
You know, a short blip. It's a great example of how subtle nuances, a subtle period of subtler change, but it's kind of like you've got a house, it's well built, but you know, you get a bird flying,
plumbing issue in the bathroom.
A plumbing issue, or you're feeling depressed about something, and a bird flies into the house, and you think, you know, it's a bad sign, or you know, you make a bigger deal about a small thing like a plumbing issue, or you know, but it's well constructed. Well, the basis of it is strong. Okay. So let's look at one. We have time for one more chart. This is a
Yeah,
real life.
we do have time
Okay.
for one.
So this is a chart of a client of mine who has a very interesting chart and very unusual chart. You can see how he is Leo ascendant. And he has Saturn in the ascendant. He has Saturn, you could say, afflicting the ascendant. So 6th, 7th Lord placed in the ascendant. And he's in a Saturn dasha. He also has his ascendant Lord in the 8th house with Ketu.
Uh-huh.
So you might think that he is, it's a chart of someone who can't really achieve much. I mean, but Sun and Ketu in the 8th house, this represents a lot of who he is. Why? Because it's the ascendant Lord. It's also the Sun. It's the Sun generally in anybody's chart is a key personality indicators.
Yeah.
The ascendant Lord, the Sun and the Moon. In this case, Sun with Ketu in the 8th house and in the sign of Pisces is saying a tremendous about him and his personality.
Plus, he has Papkartra Yoga as well.
Yes.
On the ascendant. I don't know if that did any chronic illness to him or
nothing. Nothing as of yet. He's in a Saturn dasha, and he is, so the 8th house. He's a researcher. He loves research.
Yeah.
He loves, the sign of Pisces is abstract. Sign of abstract. It's opposite the sign of Virgo, which is concrete. It's an earth sign.
Logic.
Water sign. Right. So he has a PhD in abstract physics. And he's doing amazing things. He's writing a ton right now and doing very well. So, but rewinding back last year, so this was early on in his Saturn-Venus dasha. So you can see that Saturn aspects his moon, so he's more prone to worry and anxiety, you might say. Saturn aspecting the moon. Saturn's a planet of anxiety. So and Venus is the 10th lord with Mercury. 10th lord in the 9th house. That's a Raj Yoga by placement. 10th lord in the 9th house is with 2nd and 11th lord. Venus also in the D10 chart is in Gemini, the sign of Mercury. It's with Mercury, it's again in Mercury's sign. There's a connection with Mercury being Mercury's its dispositor in the D10 chart, as well as in the Navamsha. It's in the 10th house in the Navamsha.
Yeah.
So Venus is in the sign of a friend. It's neutral with Mars. Mars is in a three houses before or after gives temporary friends. So Mars, Venus is in sign of a friend.
Yeah.
Even though it's in Mars' sign. This is the 10th lord, but and with Mercury, it's also from the moon. It's the 4th and 9th lord. So very strong house rulership lord. It's the Raj Yoga Karaka from the moon.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so last fall, I was looking ahead. We were looking at this and looking at the Mars sub dasha. So he had a fear that his postdoc was going to end. It was going to end in let's see, hope I got this right. It's ending in January. In January of this year, 2015.
Okay.
And so he was at he had completed his PhD program, and now he was doing a postdoc research position at the same university, I believe Wisconsin, in physics, but he wasn't really enjoying it, and contract was going to end, and if he didn't get another postdoc, he'd have to go back to India. I mean, he would lose his ability to stay in the United States, even though he had a PhD from the United States, from Purdue.
Wow.
A very well respected, postgraduate program. In any case, so he was really afraid that he would have to let go of his dream, which was to become a teacher, and a writer and a research. He wanted to do research and he wanted to teach. He wants to do that. So Venus is with Mercury. So I was going, you're in your Venus dasha now. Venus is the 10th lord. It's the 10th lord also from Saturn, the Mahadasha lord. I mean, it's a favorable house lord. It's unaspected by malefics. So I was looking ahead to his Mars subdasha. So if he got a postdoc, he'd have to move because he wasn't going to stay where he was. So there should be something in the D4 chart. So this to him was a pending loss, downturn. So he was asking me, do you see me having to get a job in the United States, like give up this academic life, and maybe join a corporation, do corporate work, or maybe that would be even difficult because he's never had a corporate job. In other words, he could get sponsored a H-1B visa and not have to go back to India, but he didn't know whether anybody would accept him. And if that didn't happen and he couldn't get a postdoc, well, then there's no options. He had to go back to India. So this was the fears that he was going through, particularly last fall. And so he was in Saturn, Venus, Sun dasha. Ketu was transiting over Sun at that time. Not only is Ketu with the Sun, but Ketu was transiting through Pisces. So, causing a lot of anxiety with just simply being in Saturn dasha can give him anxiety to some extent because Saturn aspects the moon. Mars also aspects the moon. So he needs a lot of reassurance. So I saw my job, reassure him. You're in the dasha of the 10th lord, things are going to work out. You're going to get a job. Things are going to turn, you're going to get another postdoc position. And when would it happen? Well, I was looking at the strength of Mars in the D10 chart. Mars is in Aries, and it's the 10th lord.
And it aspects the 10th house.
Yeah, it aspects the 10th house. So that looks good. It's the 10th lord with the 5th lord.
From the moon as well, and Saturn in the birth chart. Cancellation of debilitation.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So Mars is also in the D4 chart. The D4 chart. Okay, let's see. The D4 chart. Mars is with Venus, and Venus is the 4th lord in exchange with the moon. So I was going either in the moon subdasha. Moon comes before Mars, so Saturn, Venus, Moon, or Saturn, Venus, Mars would be a likely time for moving. Mars is the 4th lord in the natal chart too. Okay, so then also what happened was in November of 2011, last year, Saturn went into his 4th house.
Okay.
Right, by transit. So Jupiter also was in Cancer. If he had to move, it'd be for a job. I mean, if he got a job, he'd move. He'd have to get a job by January. So in November, Saturn goes into the 4th house, and Jupiter was in Cancer. So the double transit, Jupiter and Saturn are on his 4th house. From the ascendant, also from Saturn. So, and then Venus, Mars is the 10th lord in the D4 chart with the 4th lord. I'm going, that's a combination. In Mars Dasha, he could get a job and move. Mars Subdasha. Mars Venus, Saturn Venus, Mars, or Saturn Venus Moon is what I told him.
Okay.
It happened finally, and that was right at the time he got an extension. His school, even though he was supposed to, the contract was supposed to end in January, he got an extension for a few months. So he had a little reprieve, and things came together. I should be showing this D4 in the North Indian style chart. So that's what I was looking at. You know, Mars is the 10th lord. Mars is with Venus, so they're combining in the D4 chart. Mars is the 4th lord in the natal chart. The double transit's on the 4th house. It looks like you're going to move. Plus, what he really wanted was he really wanted to write. He's in this Venus period, super creative period. Venus with Mercury. He wanted to write. He had all this energy to write. And he wanted to write in an academic setting. Well, Venus is in the 9th house with an academic planet, Mercury. That looks like, it doesn't look like corporate work. This looks like academic work.
And 9th house is publishing, so he wants to be published.
Yes, he wants to get published. He wants to be published a lot. Okay, so then going back to the D10, see if there's any clues there. So these are kinds of, you know, people are getting afraid of impending doom in their life, and you know, we can help them out. Show them things are going to be okay. So Venus also as the 10th lord in the D10, also clinching or at least giving a strong indication that that could be the time period. But Moon also is exalted in the D10. So the either the Moon sub dasha or the Mars sub dasha is what I said. And it came in Venus, Saturn, Venus, Mars. He got the postdoc of his dream. What he really wanted was to be in, I mean, of course, Boston is where the big academic, that's where Harvard is, right? So it's where the most, I mean, the highest density of universities are in Boston, in the United States. I mean, it's such a stimulating academic environment. That's really where
like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, MIT. I mean,
right, exactly. Yeah, so he had an offer actually from a school there in Boston, and it looked good, but they didn't have funding. So I kept saying, it's going to come through. It's going to come through. The guy was saying, we really want you, but we've got to get it secured. And it was just this last minute thing. But you can see how, I mean, if you look at this, you know, K2 is transiting over the sun in the 8th house. You know, you could think this could be a time of decline. You know, Saturn is aspecting to the ascendant by transit, and aspecting to the Mahadasha Lord, natal Saturn. And that was a lot of his experience, that things were just in this stuck place. Saturn can give stuckness. But then Jupiter, the double transit, should shape things up. I mean, it should mean that things are going to move in a progressive direction.
Yeah.
Any case, this looked like a time of, and felt like a time to him of career decline. He'd worked so hard to get the PhD. He got a 1-year postdoc, and then now he was like, am I going to be able to continue?
Yeah.
And so, and I just talked with him briefly today, and he not only got he's not only doing well, and they've already. So I did a recent reading with him, and he was concerned that, okay, this is working out good, but it's going to end in March next year. I think it went from it's a 1-year contract. Well, he just announced that he's done so well. He's produced so much work in the Venus subdasha. So here's a dasha sequence very different than Saturn Sun. Saturn and Venus are natural friends.
Yeah,
they're in a 1-9 relationship, a trinal relationship in the natal chart. They're in a 3-11 relationship in the D10 chart and in the Navamsha chart. So they're not only natural friends, they're in a good relationship to one another, and things should come together. For him, it did. So,
wow.
It's a few examples of career rises and falls, and I hope it's been fun. It's been fun for me to share.
It's always educational with you. And if people want to actually get their consultation done with you, they can still go to the light on VedicAstrology.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're taking bookings right now. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vaughn Manley, for coming here and just rocking our astrological world again. This is great information as always.
Let's see. Let's go back to screen share.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Unscreen share. Okay.
There you go. So yeah, thank you so much for coming and teaching these things to us. I mean, it always just opens your mind and you learn something new every time. Even if it's like information you worked with, it's like, wow, that's right. You always give out a little bit of juice.
Wow. All right.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Kapil.
Namaste.
Namaste. All the best to you in your new home in DC.